with the working session. So first on the agenda is a citizens forum. Everybody? And mention having John go first with the transport, just to shake it up a little bit.
I like this idea.
Yeah. Do I get to go after John?
It was very short.
That's a meeting you guys get.
Because I didn't, obviously.
Well, I think everything's going pretty smoothly at the garage now.
Make sure your mic is on.
Oh, it's not on, is it?
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you.
Like I was saying, I'd say everything's going pretty smoothly. I think all the new drivers are figuring everything out, and I'm slowly getting there myself. And I just have a few more driver evaluations to finish out, and I'll be getting caught up, I'd like to think. And other than that, I don't have too much at the moment. You guys have any questions?
You have enough drivers right now?
As of right now, and I have another driver, he's got to get some waiver figured out with the state, and then he'll be able to drive. Hopefully by Tuesday, hopefully by tomorrow. It'll be big to get him back because we need him. So, because come winter time, that's when things get busy, it seems like. So we're getting by. We're doing okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
They appreciate you, John.
Keep it short and sweet.
Yep.
Well, you've got a couple of bus drivers that will be happy that we're wrapping up projects. There was the bridge on the school forest, so he's a happy camper. He doesn't have to drive all the way around. And then William, he'll be happy that when he doesn't have to jump through hoops. So.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. Next, I guess we'll maybe go back in order. Unless you want. No, it doesn't matter. I'm just joking. No.
You do board committees at all, or? Okay.
Yeah, I guess school force didn't meet, so.
I couldn't remember, so I put it on there anyway. So.
Meet and confer?
Meet and confer was very short. They had they shared some positive comments they've heard and some not so positive. Just morale, I guess, in the school, right? That was pretty much it.
So the positives, I jotted down some notes.
Okay, I didn't.
Usually Tim is there and he's the note taker.
He is.
But positive comments about having the setup for the streaming this way. The voices are much better heard at the podium. In general, the 6th grade shift is going well from their perspectives, and they're hearing mostly positive comments from the kids, so that's positive. They talked about the school forest being used, and even we have a kindergarten classroom that's been using it on a regular basis, which is good. They talked about our fall, in the elementary side, the fall fast bridge screening, which we do every year, was done very quickly and smoothly this year. Good collaboration among staff, and we had additional help from Mrs. O'Connell. I think I can announce this, but they have a Teacher of Year nominees for this year are Bobby Joe Castle, Andrina Nylander, and J.J. Olson. And then I wrote down there are 7 local daycares in operation, so we must talk about daycare.
That was part of the whole morale situation.
Okay.
I thought maybe lack of daycare was putting stress on.
See, I stuck it up on the positives because compared to where we were a few years ago,
it's a good thing.
It's a good thing, but there's still a need there.
There's 7 in the county or 7 in the area.
Seven
Roughly,
local,
yeah.
and I don't know if that includes Rainy River.
How
I
many
don't
have
think
there?
so.
How many have there been? I'm assuming at some points, maybe less.
It was less than 7, not that long ago. So, and then they talked about on the concerns is just a general low morale with staff. Kind of a working to survive rather than working to thrive is kind of the comment they meant. But there was no clear reasoning for it. It's just a general statement and no magic solutions at this time. So I think that might just be a general thing within the community. I don't know.
That was it,
That's pretty much it.
yeah.
And then next up, we have negotiation.
Can't be too specific about what we've talked, but it seems so far we're still moving forward. Things are going all right. I think you can get the information. I don't think I can dispense any of it because we haven't offered it to the teaching side yet, but they've come to us for a discussion. For those of you who are in other negotiations process, I think the big outlier there is the insurance thing this year. It's just going to be difficult and it's going to be large, and we're all cringing a little bit, but at the same time, there's a reality there. So I don't know if that adds to the length of it or the difficulty of it, but right, so far so good, and I think we'll offer a counter offer on the 30th of October when we meet with them again.
But really good communication, I feel. A good volley, good, yeah.
Yeah, there's some positives and there's some
Well, I
negatives
just
to
want to put
quote
that
the
out
meet
there,
and
because I
confer
think
meeting.
it's
And I
nice,
think,
like, it's nice to be able to be like, okay, yeah, you got that, you got, okay. You know.
They understand the bind we're in terms of, you know, and that's always nice, that both sides seem to understand what's going on. So, that's about it. Like I said, I can't be too much more specific. Are we gonna close for discussion at the end of the meeting, or no?
I did not put that on the agenda unless you feel there's a need.
No, I just within the committee, I guess we can discuss again, but we will on the 30th, so.
Yes, we can meet before we meet with the teachers if you want, with just the negotiating team.
Yeah, and since we're all sort of paralleling our discussions, it just wanted the other board members to have an idea of what it was, you know, we were gonna offer right before and you'll disseminate that on the, but you did some of it,
Yep.
but still non-specific on some of it too.
And I think the MSEA team will be meeting Thursday at 3:30 prior to meeting with MSEA negotiators, so everyone will be abreast of what's going on. And we'll see how things go Thursday and on the 30th, and then we can determine if we need to do another closed session as a board.
Anything else on that?
Nope.
Okay. Next up, we've got Superintendent Nelson.
So in your board packet, I did send out some information. Enrollment, and I have an error on it. It's not the September. It's October 1 enrollment. It's at 429, and that's up 3 students. District-wide. Elementary, we're up 2 from September, we're at 199, and the high school, 6 through 12, is up 1 from September. Last month, we talked about the strategic plan and how we're gonna go through each section. And tonight's section is on student achievement. Mary's gonna do a report on the world's best workforce. And we'll be addressing a number of those areas under that area. I did send out information just on the, as elementary principal, the MCA 3 results for the elementary. And I guess generally speaking, without going into great detail at this time, I think with the recent upward trends in math, reading, and science, I feel that on the elementary side for sure, we're heading in the right direction. In math, elementary is at 44.4% and is above the state average of 42.8%, and that's on the achievement level. And if you look through the different things, some of these percentages are a little bit different. And it's depending on what they're looking at. So there's, if you look at the proficiency rate has a little bit different percentage than the achievement rate. And that's, I'm assuming it has to do with how they're counting kids, and with the proficiency, it talks about kids that exceed the standard, meet the standard, partially meet, and do not meet. And I think they scale those differently, so it kind of overall changes the percentage, is the best guess I can provide. In reading, the elementary is at 46.7 achievement. That's 1 percentage below the state average, roughly, which is at 47.6. We had significant growth in moving students up in achievement level, and I apologize for not numbering my page, but there is in the middle, it says elementary 3 through 6 academic progress reading, and that was in your packet. That was one of the graphs that really stuck out to me. On the top, it talks about the achievement level improved, and that's getting kids to move up a little. If they did not meet, getting them to partially meet, and if they met, getting them to exceed. Lake Woods Elementary, as far as moving kids up achievement levels, was at 40.8%, compared to the state, that's at 18%. So that tells me the kids are showing tremendous growth in their reading. So that was a highlight I'd like to point out. In science, the elementary has been above the state average for 2 years in a row. In 2022, we were at 54% versus 50% at the state level. And last year we were at 55.6% versus the state at 54.1%. Also in the packet, it talks about participation level, and we're always have a slightly higher percentage of participation compared to the state average, which is a positive thing. I also included some information on some student feedback on do teachers care about students. That's in that packet. Any questions on any of that? I guess the last thing I want to talk about as far as assessments is just keep in mind that the MCAs is just one indicator of student achievement. It only provides a single snapshot each year. In the elementary, we rely more on our FastBridge screening, which is done 3 times a year for all students. We also use that as a progress monitoring tool, and that's something that we delve in much more in the elementary. I think in the high school they use what's called the STAR assessment. So that's more useful information for administrators and teachers that are dealing with students and their education is the FastBridge screen for the elementary. And I'm hoping to bring some information on that for you in November when we talk about student support. Any questions?
So I'm looking at that one.
Yep.
And obviously it shows great improvement, Lake in the Woods Elementary, you know, just in the last school year.
Yep.
And the green line suggesting that's Lake of the Woods School District, that's grades K through 12 being assessed?
Nope. So the elementary is just tested in reading and math, grades 3 through 6. Science is just given to students in grade 5. And Mary will talk about the test in 7th and 8th grade. Is it reading and math?
7th and 8th grade. 7th grade is reading and math. 8th grade is reading, math, and science.
10th grade
is reading and science. 11th grade is math.
So even in the high school, it's even more.
So the district indicates the entire school?
District would be all the kids testing.
That are tested.
So it does not include K1, 2, or 12th grade. Or 9th grade. So it's
but
just.
everyone
Of the students tested,
yeah.
That's what that
district.
the district one counts.
Okay, and again, approaching it from a neophyte's perspective here, but I look at that and say, is the rest of the school, I mean, is there sort of the horses are out of the barn already by the time those kids get to 9th grade, real hard to get their reading scores to come up, their math scores to come up, so they tend to flatten, whereas if you're taking the kids who are getting that test, you're having great success, for instance, with their reading here, you know, bringing it right up to state average in the course of a year.
Yep, and if you go to the back page of my report, I think the biggest thing, you're looking at the reading, which was the other graph I showed with improving, moving up. We're in our third year of a new curriculum. And more importantly, we went through an intensive training, letters training, and I mentioned that in there. To me, I think that's the, more so than the curriculum, is the staff training, because it's the instruction that really impacts the kids. And I think that's where we had that nice big jump. Hopefully we can maintain that over time.
The whole elementary staff had to do that.
Every
training.
elementary
Yeah.
classroom teacher, it would have been K through 6, had that training. There's a principal training that I took. It's something that we started this year. Each Wednesday when we do our staff meeting, or once a month staff meeting, we do look at some of that reading instruction and testing and stuff, so.
So the knee-jerk reaction is keep doing that. I mean, doesn't that make sense that something positive really worked there?
But you also have to keep in mind with this state assessment, when you're looking at a cohort group, I mean, we can look at cohort groups, and you might have a group that comes in not as ready for school as others, and that can impact your score, because there are a small number of kids, you know.
I understand. You might have a group of
4 or 5 kids in one grade level can skew your results one way or the other. So that's kind of why it's good information to look at, but I wouldn't want to make decisions just based on the MCA3s.
And boy, you've been pretty good about bringing it up again and again, and I appreciate that. You know, we should keep looking at that. Does that answer some of the questions you brought up last meeting? I mean, in terms, or at least some of your concerns, are we getting better? How, especially I look at how we relate to the rest of the state, not just how our kids alone are doing, but how they are. And that's a significant improvement. I mean, yes, it's a one-year situation, but it's got to make you feel a little better about your concerns.
Gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling.
We like those.
Yeah,
A sarcastic one.
a little bit,
But I
yeah.
also think it shows that the training was worthwhile.
Right.
That we took
And
that
definitely
step
in the
that,
reading.
Yeah.
you
The
know,
science scores that Ms. Merchant sent out show that we're not doing a good job, but then again, I didn't realize that it was so sporadic that the science was tested, and it's
but
like,
it's like 3 grades and that's it.
yeah, and so I don't know, there's a lot of information, and you almost need, and that's the problem with a lot of this, you need the basis for it and the percentages, and that's why I like the overall graphs, and I very much like the comparison with other towns. That's how, when it's this all over the place, and same with the number of kids coming in, you have to look at a long range. And I think it was 2014 that all schools dropped. Prior to 2014, I might have that year wrong, Lake of the Woods was like top of the heap of like 3 or 4 schools or whatever. Everybody dropped down in 2014, popped back up, and we were below most of the schools in the area. And that's kind of why I was asking for like a longer range and multiple schools, because then you can judge yourself against other schools similar size. Because, I mean, Mr. Nelson's right. I mean, it's a snapshot. So the only way it's useful is if you look at a broad range compared to other schools. So yeah, I mean, great, it went up, but okay. I mean, that's one test, a couple of years snapshot on either side. Like 3 years previously, was it way up or was it way down? That's why you have to get that trend analysis going. So there, did that answer your question about that? I mean, it's a lot of information, good or bad, who knows, and that's why the comparison. And then it becomes relative. Then you don't have to have the exact numbers, and hopefully the averages kind of wash out over that time. But you would be able to look and see over the last 10 years, are we going up or down? I mean, that should give you a good indication of how the school district's doing, in my opinion. So,
And if we could get the state to set the standards, set the assessment, and not mess with it on a regular basis, that was the 2014 thing, was a significant change in
Yep.
standards and what the kids were tested on. They keep moving the bar.
Yep.
You know, and it's right now I feel for some of our districts, you just never quite catch up, and you start looking like, hey, we're getting there, and then they'll change the bar and do something different, you know, so. And I don't know, I think with science, maybe things change, but in my lifetime, how much has math changed?
shouldn't.
How much has
Yeah.
reading changed? I mean, if.
Now, that being said, I know they have changed how they teach math, and.
And that goes in cycles.
Yep.
You know, and I've been in this long enough that, you know,
Yep.
oh, I remember doing it that way, and then, you know, so that's the beast with education. I probably shouldn't say this at a public board meeting, I just question how the state does their assessment compared to other states, and why they're setting the standards the way that they do. It just doesn't compute to me. When we look at the Fastbridge Star assessments is what we really use for helping kids grow in their reading and math. That's nationally normed data, and it doesn't change every 4 or 5 years, you know, so that's some good data that you can look at. How do our kids compare nationally? And when you have a state assessment where your state average hovers around 50%, there's a disconnect on what we're expecting kids to show.
Yep.
And what really is the reality on kids and people. You know, is the bar set too high? Are we measuring what we really are trying to measure at the state level? I don't know. But as a classroom teacher, when I taught, if I gave a test and half the kids passed and half the kids failed, that would be, something's
Yep.
not connecting, and I'm not sure what the answer is, but.
And the MCA, I mean, from what I've looked into it, I mean, I totally agree with you. It is not the best metric to measure. Unfortunately, I mean, there's few other ones. I mean, other than, the only other one I could see is something like the ACT, because that would be, and it would have to be the kids who applied to take it, like not the pre-SAT or ACT, if they still have that, but the ACT, because, and even then, that's more your college-bound kids. But it should get rid of all of the extraneous stuff of the kids tapping out, they call it, where they don't really care and they just hit the button so they can be done with the test.
I think Mary can attest to that.
So the ACT should be the best metric, I would think.
Which is probably not going to be a thing of the past. We're
Yeah,
moving
and
towards.
then schools,
They start
a lot of
using,
schools
yeah.
quit requiring the ACT, so, yeah.
But that's a measurement of what you've done, as opposed to what I like about the 3rd to 5th grade stuff is what you still can do. And that's why I look at the knee jerk and say, boy, those 3rd and 5th graders, or that gap in there, that group, had some improvement, and we're still working our way up to that, because ACT is traditionally taken by 11th grade.
Oh, yeah, and that's what it would have to, but that's like, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're right, it would be a looking behind snapshot. That one, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, the proficiency one, that's where, is that the individualized thing? So if the kid does better or whatever than they had the previous year, then it shows that an improvement. I mean, it gets very convoluted, and it's not, I mean, it's a metric, but I don't know if it's the best metric. I mean, so.
So I guess we all agree that this is important to look at it. It
Yep.
does provide an indication, but it can't be our only measure that we look at on how well we're servicing the kids. So we haven't talked about PBIS, we haven't talked about behavior, we haven't talked about mental health. You know, all that stuff kind of
So
works
have
its
we
way.
ever seen, and I might be forgetting, but I don't think I've ever seen the Fastbridge and STAR information in a format.
We have not done that, no.
Because that would be really nice.
Yeah.
Because if we're gonna, think of that as an indicator, then it
Well,
would be
especially
nice
if
to be
there's-
able to review that.
Especially if they're saying that that's a better
Yep.
method.
Right,
It's
exactly.
like, by all
Yep.
means,
Yeah.
pick whatever method, but we have to.
That breaks it down by kid, you
Yep.
know, so we gotta be careful what kind of
Right,
data, but.
yes, yeah.
But that's how we determine kids that need Title I services in the elementary. How we do our MTSS, and we'll talk about that when you get this. I mean, it's a very useful thing.
It seems very thorough.
It's very thorough,
The
and
packets that I've had sent home,
yeah,
that the parents get,
Uh-huh.
and it's almost too much for a parent. You don't quite understand, like.
that's what we're looking at. The state, we're looking at how many tens of thousands of kids, school. Like we're looking at a whole class. The Fast Bridge is right down to the individual kid and where they're at and how they grow over the year. And we do multiple 3 times a year screenings, so it's a good indicator.
So you
But
don't
it's just-
do anything as a group with that? There isn't data that comes out as a group?
What I've done so far
Like
with the,
blinded or, you know, whatever.
yeah, I'm still wrapping my head
Okay.
around the whole thing. Hopefully by November I have it under wraps. But in the elementary, for example, we've already identified kids for the title services. I've asked the classroom teachers to look at trends within their classroom, not by grade, but in their classroom. You know, what kids need. There's some common interventions, some common skills that, hey, if I do this instruction with these kids, I'm going to get more bang for my buck. Also, are there kids that are meeting, and what can we do to push them up even more? You know, some not gifted and talented, but some
challenge
extra
those kids a little
challenging.
bit.
So, yeah. So we'll have more information in November on that. My brain would blow up if I tried to do that and that at the same night, so. All right, that's all I have unless you have questions.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
This is good, thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Next up.
Good evening, everybody. Starting off, homecoming was a great, successful week, very busy, and our seniors once again took home the pride of being our Battle Royale winners. Progress reports, mid-quarter deficiency were sent home. Well, I have to think it's been a couple weeks because high school will have parent-teacher conferences coming up November 14th. I think the quarter ends November 6th. And I'm pleased to say I had parents contact me after they received the reports. That's not always the case, so made for good conversation and connecting them with the teachers to find out more specifics how they can help their child succeed. Academic eligibility, right after the mid-quarter reports were sent out, that started in the media center, and something that even started before then, because Mrs. Crandall's always here by like 7:20 in the morning. Kids have just started to go into the media center in the morning before school starts, so that's nice and encouraging to see. There's a space they can go, and it's quiet, and whether it's getting last-minute things done or getting ahead of the game, they're utilizing that space. Veterans Day program has been scheduled for November 10th at 11 a.m. in the auditorium, and we will once again provide lunch for the veterans and their guests. And I visited with Jackie today. She already has the menu lined up, so that's hitting good. And the theme we're focusing on this year is Heroes, and the song choir's going to sing is, I can't remember, but Heroes in the name of it. So that's our focus. And our video production class, Morgan Rose has already put together a video to show before the program starts, focusing on Veterans Day, and then if you recall our wall of veterans that's always put outside, she has incorporated a lot of those pictures in the video. Let's see, I talked about parent-teacher conferences. I'm not going to read everything that's been going on with college and career information, but it's listed on your board report things. The big thing coming up is on Wednesday, our sophomores taking their career day in Grand Forks. That's a busy and exciting day for them. Then to jump into the world's best workforce and student achievement. So the committee met this afternoon right after school, and the 5 key areas: all students ready for school, all students in 3rd grade achieving grade level literacy, close the achievement gap, students college and career ready, and all students graduate. We may not have met all the goals, and the full report's included with your board packet. So, but for example, where we started out with all students ready to start school, the goal was not met of 80%. However, what was shown was an increase in how many students were ready in the spring, if that makes sense. So the overall growth increased, even though we didn't achieve our goals. So we are showing progress there. When we talk about our 3rd grade, and something that came up in conversation did go back to reflect on the letters training and the curriculum. When we see what our world's best workforce goals are for our elementary kids specifically, it is showing growth, and you wonder what's the common element there, and that's really what we looked at. The common element is all the teachers are trained in letters. All the teachers are following the same curriculum. And when you look at elementary through high school, we are all using the same reading curriculum. So that gives us continuity all the way through senior high school. So I think that in itself is a benefit for our students. When Mr. Nelson talked about the fast bridge for elementary, high school uses, it's called STAR testing, and it's primarily our junior high kids. So our 6th through 9th grade students are tested in that, and they may be tested more often than the 3 times a year like Fast Bridge does. And it's definitely an indicator of our kids that you look at to recommend for interventions in the MTSS. And high school, I feel, is really solid with the MTS supports we have in place now, because last year during the school day, we had 2 teachers with a class period working with our junior high kids. This year, we have maintained that. When Mr. Longseth was hired to be our social studies teachers, I'm not sure if you're aware, but part of his background before he came to us was also doing interventions with kids and the MTSS. So we have somebody with experience. So as soon as a student is referred, Sam is in the office and looking in their file and getting the background information on them. So it really narrows down when they work with either Mr. Longseth or Miss Bordelon. They're really focusing on what they need to help bring up those skills. So I really think that's where we're going to start to see improvement with our junior high kids moving into senior high. When we talk about closing the achievement gap, because of our small population, we don't have any races or ethnic groups to focus on because of how small they are. We can't collect that data. So what we use as our gap is free and reduced lunch. And part of our conversation today was, well, with everybody receiving it next year, what will next year look like? But we can say, based on this year, once again, we did show growth with those students, and that gap decreased, and I want to say to 9% that it decreased to, so that's the good news there. One thing that's going to change next year is all kids being on track by 3rd grade. That goal is going to disappear, and Mr. Nelson and I will be visiting on what's going to happen there. So I don't know how it's going to show in the report. I believe it's going to have something to do with focusing on curriculum, which I shared with the committee today, because Mr. Nelson shared with me that what we are using was on the list. So we are very much, and letters training was on the list. So we are very much ahead of the game there when we look at what some new requirements may be. Students college and career ready. That goal also ties into our achievement and integration report that we do, and that has to do with opportunities we provide for the kids, but with the achievement integration, it also is having our kids interact with schools that, so our neighboring school is Kellier, that is earmarked as a racial identified school, referring to their Native American population. And so the career day is an opportunity that our sophomores get. What we added into our achievement integration last year was including what our 5th through 8th graders do, because there's the opportunity for the Creativity Festival, which is coming up. Our 6th graders are going to participate in that in November, and then the Young Authors Conference, which is coming up, I believe that's in March. So additional opportunities for our kids to interact with neighboring schools. And then all students graduate. When you look at the Minnesota report card and graduation rate, when they're looking at that, they're taking our students who are our kids from 9th grade through 12th grade. So even if we have a student that was ours as a 9th grader and they haven't enrolled anywhere else, and all of a sudden as a senior they aren't with us, that would count against us with our percentage for graduation rate. So when you look at the world's best workforce, when we write our goal, we base it on our kids who are enrolled at our school. So our goal is 100%, and I can say the last 3 years we have met that goal. And the committee decided when we also looked at goals for next year when we met today, and we're going to continue to maintain that goal, because we can only help the kids who are in our building. If they aren't enrolled here, that's really it's a variable we can't control if they aren't in the building. So as long as we can continue to focus on the kids that are in our building and have them graduate on track, I think that's a success story right there. And then the other thing I included in my report was our curriculum review cycle. And when we look at our science scores, and these are, there's no excuse. Our science scores are not what we would like them to be. They are not making the mark. One thing that probably affected it was 3 years ago, so it would have been that year of COVID, the state changed that you had 2 years to make the change, that 8th grade was no longer going to be earth science, it was going to change to physical science, and that also affected our 6th graders, and then our 9th grade changed from physical science to earth science. So getting those standards or lined up, then if you want to say it, teaching to the test, is a challenge to make sure that you are covering the concepts that are going to be on that test when it is given in the spring. I will say that's one reason I'm so glad that Diane will make the tests as late in the year as possible for our kids so that we can get more of those areas covered. Looking at the review cycle and when implementation will be, the next ones that we will be looking at is science. I think in the high school, as far as alignment with the standards, we're there, but I know it's something that in elementary has not been done. So I'll be meeting with elementary teachers this year to look at those. And that covers it very quickly. Do you have any questions for me?
How does this, do you have any idea how the state comes up with their thing? I mean, okay, so we've got a curriculum that we need to follow that I presumably is put out by the state, and then the state puts out the MCA test. So how does that all, and it's probably something that you can't describe in the next 5 minutes or something like that. So if that's the case, I get it. Like, don't they coincide the test with the curriculum, or is that too optimistic that the state would like think that way?
Well, I'm going to use the word standards and not curriculum, because that's really what you have to follow is the specific standard that has to be met.
Well, you have to meet the standards, but then there was also the curriculum that's approved that you use, that you guys.
Well,
that's a new development.
That's new for
and
reading.
That's part of the Reading Act, the READ Act. That's a new development for Minnesota. Usually they said, here's the standards, and they would list a gazillion of them that no way in human possibility can you cover every standard in a school year that's assigned. If you've, we used to print off binders that thick. So then you have to look at the test, and you have to look at the essential standards, and so I don't know. But the new curriculum, there's a list. It's based on scientific approach to reading, which is based on the letters training. There's a few other trainings that do that, but that's new, where the state has said, here is a list of approved curriculums for school districts to choose from. So they've taken the local control from the board on selecting curriculum and narrowed what you can choose from, which I don't necessarily disagree with. They were supposed to put some money behind this, so if you purchased one on the list several years ago, you could cover the cost. It doesn't sound like we're going to do that, but that's another complaint I won't share with you today.
But so then those curriculums, if they set aside, should meet the standards, right? Or teach the
I would
standards,
hope that
right? Am I saying that correctly?
it would meet the standards. In some states, you don't get a choice at the school. This is the state curriculum chosen. It's good and positive on both ends. But if everyone's working off the same curriculum, then you just have to focus on the delivery and the instruction. Because and how they come up with the standards, they have this large committee, and people show up with their own little things. You can see it. Social studies, why don't we test in social studies? Because they can't come up with a consistent set of standards that they can agree on what are we going to teach in history. That's why they have the standards, but they don't test on it because it's just a quagmire of different opinions. And I think it's kind of with the science, it's, who's pushing for the earth science versus space science.
And you can look at the standards, and the teachers could have the best instruction, and they could give a test, and the kids could all ace the test, and they go to take the MCAs, and depending on how that same question is worded, could throw a student. Or then when you're looking at multiple choice, I'd be the first person to say, ask me a question, I'll tell you the answer, but don't give me multiple choice. Because I look at them and I second guess myself, and so they aren't necessarily, and now it's my opinion up here, setting kids up for success. So in many ways, you can look and think our kids are very successful. You brought up the ACTs. Honestly, I look at our ACT scores, and I know our kids can do a lot better than that. When you look at our students who go off to a 2 or 4 year college, and ACTs, we're talking 4-year college, and how many of those kids are successful, and they've gone to school, they've graduated, they have jobs, they're wonderful, productive citizens. That's not a reflection necessarily of their ACT score. And right now, they don't need an ACT score to get into a college. I just had a senior tell me one of the schools she applied to, it's an out-of-state school, they actually wanted the MCA score. And the comment the student said to me, so this is what I would consider a high-flying senior, I wish I would have tried on the test. So we are talking not just our students who may not love and embrace school. We are talking our high flyers aren't giving their best on that test. And so when we look at our high school scores, I think our challenge in the high school is to get them to do their best on a test, to help them find the buy-in, because that does reflect us as a school and a district. I don't think it's necessarily because they don't have the ability to perform.
Yeah, that's the hard part of the whole thing. And I don't want to, kind of the reason why I kind of harped on the MCA is that's the only metric that we have to go off of that you can. So to judge whether we appear to be doing a good job or not. Now, we may be doing it, like you're saying, we may be doing an absolutely fantastic job, but if the kids don't take the test seriously, we look like we're doing a horrible job. And how do you sort all that out? And if anybody who can figure that one out, by all means, let me know, because I don't know how you do it.
Well, and I can bring star information to share, like Mr. Nelson said, it's individual, but Diane pulled some where it shows like when they took the first test, 62% proficient or on track with grade level reading. So I can share some of that because honestly, that is more exciting to see. Yeah, our kids, and don't we want to constantly see growth? I mean, when you look at our sixth graders from where they start to where they are at the end of the year, if we're showing growth in that, then we're doing our job.
Yep. Yeah, so if you guys think that's a better metric, by all means, bring it out so we can see it or something. I mean.
Okay, anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. Next up, business officer.
So we are officially a quarter of the way through the year, and our state revenue is at 24% received. Property taxes are 0.45% received. In October, we'll be receiving a significant payment from Lake of the Woods County. Local revenue is 0% received. Overall, our total revenues budgeted are $7,270,241. For our grants for 2024, I just drew our Finance 150 Summer Academic Mental Health Support Funds. The amount was $1,386.86. This is only for work that was completed in July and August. There were just over $300 less left in our grant, but the money can only be used for the summer, so it will remain there. I'm not sure if the state will open up more funding for next summer. We'll find that out during the year. We still have our Farm to School First Bite grant, and that is for Food Service Fund 2. We have $2,500 remaining. We did not spend any money in quarter 3, which is to be expected. Our quarter 4 submission is due December 30th. Our expenditures are 16% expended for salaries and wages. Employee benefits are 15% expended. Purchase services are 51% expended, which seem high at this point in the year, so I'm going to take a look and do a little bit of research just to see what's throwing our report off, or if there's something coded or something that needed to be moved back into 2023, but we're going to take a look at that. Our supplies are 49% expended for the year, which is very normal considering that all of the supplies for school are purchased right at the beginning of the school year. Equipment is also 58% expended. Our Fund 2 food service revenues from state and federal will come in October. So in September is the first month of school, so all our numbers are submitted through clicks in October, and then we receive the revenue in October. I included our student activity balance report. We did discuss taking care of the class of 2028 and eliminating the expense that's sitting there. Let me see if I can find that quick. So we just discussed whether we should move the expense back to last fiscal year or eliminate it in this fiscal year. We'll discuss it with the auditors before we're done. So there was a payment made out of the class of 2028 back in 2021, and we searched and couldn't find where the payment actually should have been made from. At this point, we're probably not going to figure it out. So The advisor asks that we just clear out the fund so they can have a balance of 0 to start. And if you look at the packet on page 7, so we have a template that we use to calculate what the state still owes us at the end of the school year after all payments have been made, and we also factor in like what payments were made in the prior year. So we just completed this last month, actually just a couple weeks ago. One of my coworkers helped me go through it just because we switched auditors this year. We also had some discrepancy based in our fund balance compared to the actual audit documents that we had. And our receivable was not set up this year. So she helped me go through everything and she was a huge help. But what happened was in 2022, the state paid us $445,642 extra in gen ed aid. And the reason why that happened was because Lake of the Woods County had made a payment to us and the check wasn't cashed and it just sat here for a couple months. So now we just need to clean that up. So basically our revenue was overstated in 2022, so the correction is going to be made in 2023, which is going to just have a bigger impact on us this year. So, you know, if we look at page 8 of my UFAR's expense revenue summary, right now it shows that we have a deficit of $691,849. But if we actually didn't have to pay back that money, we would finish the year at $246,849 deficit. Sorry about that. So that money should have been to last year, and it just actually made last year look even better. We actually had a lower deficit than what we would have had. So I apologize for the lateness on that, but it actually really caught me off guard also. It's just extra money the school district received that we shouldn't have received just because of some accounting issues from the prior year. So the auditors will provide their presentation next month. They will complete the audit June 7th and 8th, just wrap up any things that are left to complete. The final audit is due to the state by November 30th. So they should be able to provide the full report next month, and then they'll be able to provide all the fund balance and the official audit summary.
They'll finish up the audit in November.
Yeah, so in 2 weeks they'll finish it up, but they should have the full summary completed for the November school board meeting. I haven't heard from them for a couple weeks. They mentioned they were extremely busy, so there was a couple weeks there where we kind of went back and forth on email, but I haven't heard from them for about a month. So they called me and they wanted to set aside just a couple days just to wrap it up, beginning of November. So I did provide my month-end documents for September 30th, 2023, and also for June 30th, 2023. So looking at the end of the fiscal year, and then fiscal year 2024, just through September. Do you have any questions on the information?
A little bit. I don't know how to phrase it in a, that maybe might not make sense, but so we're in negotiations right now and we're setting the tone for like the next 2 years.
And that's a huge amount of money. So is that, like, when we're looking at the budgets, and what we can afford, is that factored in? I'm assuming it's factored in, but.
We did do a 5-year projection.
Okay.
Previously, and we laid out the next 5 years, what it's going to look at, especially for FY24. We have the budget, what we included in the budget is not what necessarily maybe is being negotiated, but we did factor in some things in our budget. We were reviewing our 5-year plan again, so. As far as the budget for this year, we initially projected it to be in the black. For 2024. But special ed expenses definitely last year were higher than what we projected. We'll work out some things, but overall 2024 was projected to be much better than 2023.
So the projection was basically off $300,000, roughly?
No.
If we were supposed to be in the black and we were in the red, 290-some thousand.
We projected to have a deficit of $90,000
For 2020.
for 2023. And, let me find my page, $92,000. We would have finished with a deficit of $246,849.
Okay.
So about $150,000 difference, but they're just withholding money this year that we shouldn't have received the prior year. Just an overpayment. So in reality, in 2022, we received $445,000 that we shouldn't have received. So it's throwing off 2 years of our financials.
It makes 2022 look fairly abysmal in terms of the bottom line, but how would we have, if that check hadn't been cashed, how would we have changed our spending in that year to accommodate that?
We wouldn't have. And I did send an email over the weekend, and I said, we would have had to make cuts on some huge items like our chiller project, which we initially thought was going to be used with grant dollars. But for the most part, all of our grant dollars last year were used to cover things that were already happening. Like we're covering employee wages and things, so just basically supplanting expenses that were already there. So even me, I was like, oh my gosh, I felt really uncomfortable with this. I was very upset with it, but on my end, it wasn't my error. But, it happened. We have to give it back. That's how it works. But what would have we cut this year?
Would we have made bigger cuts, though? Because we did do cuts. Would we have made bigger cuts knowing what we know now?
And I guess I wasn't here then, but we made cuts for 2024. I wasn't here for the cuts for 2023.
I guess at the end of this, right, just last spring, we were cutting positions.
You cut 2 positions.
Yeah.
To make that, or to at least accommodate for the numbers we thought were accurate at that point.
Yeah.
So the
But
check
I think you have to
says-
keep this in mind that that 445 was a one-time error. It was
From 2 years
overpaid
ago.
1 year. They're collecting it, so it's not an ongoing deficit in revenue. This is a
It won't
correction.
affect 2024.
Well, the bottom line is the auditors missed it last year as well. So
Yes.
it was, which was very unfortunate.
Well, Tim Lyon's human nature wants to point and find somebody culpable for this who can help pay it back, and I'm wondering why this. No, well, But why does the state pay back what something that the county, that we had cashed on the county? How does that work? I mean, why does the state pay money?
And I actually received a phone call, like later in the fall even, and the lady at the state just explained that to them it looked like the county didn't give us any money. So that, for them, they need to make up the difference.
So the state's giving is based on what the county gives.
Yes.
And so by not cashing a check, it looked like we received nothing, so then the state
Paid us.
Yes.
more.
Then did we cash the check?
And then the
And then we
check showed
cashed
up.
We
the check.
did cash
And
the
then we
check.
did cash the check, okay.
And then we cashed the check.
Those bank errors catch up with you
But
sooner or later,
they never
especially from the state.
looked back that we were overpaid. The state did never look back that they overpaid us.
Oh,
Oh, no, they didn't.
yep, that's why they took it back.
I know, but a long time later is what I'm saying.
So
It took them 2 years.
It took some time to realize.
Yeah.
this is very oversimplified because that's the best my brain can do, you know, and I might use the wrong terminologies, but basically there's the net tax capacity that drives a lot of our funding. And also, we can't collect more in taxes that we want, you know, like the Highline taxes that we thought was gonna bring in all this money, well, it did to the state. And the state says, this is your portion, Lakely Woods School, and that's all you're gonna get. So if we collect more at the county level, our state aid is reflected, so we're not getting a bumper crop on revenue. It evens it out.
There's a cap
And
on
it's,
what we can
you know, so it's based on that, that's my simplified rationale.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean, so what we thought was a
extra.
benefit, it really maintains.
it's more of a benefit to the tax
Hey,
payers. You know, they evens it out one way or another, you know, and we can only levy so much, and the county collects it, and the state divvies it out and sends it back, and
Well, isn't
Because
that
at the
just
time,
funny?
I think if that was the power line, at the time, we just thought that was.
that we got,
Extra.
we got that 300 and,
Yeah.
yeah. We do get it, but then the state will adjust it a little bit.
Because I do think that decisions were made based on our thought that we were getting an enhanced tax revenue out of that.
Con would be different. That's one that's locally generated and we get our portion, and that's depending on the sales of timbers and stuff. That's a little bit different because that's not levied on taxpayers.
So the bottom line is, if it's too good to be true,
It is.
probably is.
Yep.
So we owe this to the state at the moment,
For 2023.
and their way of collecting
They
is by
withheld.
not giving.
Right.
Yep.
So
They just
really, it's
withheld
not
it.
like we can go in there and say, can we pay this off over a period of time? I mean, they're looking at it, they want it now, or this year.
They take it now.
Yeah.
Well, and I've seen, like, I saw another school go through an audit, and student numbers were reported incorrectly, which threw off our compensatory revenue. So we received too much, like it was pretty close to this, almost $500,000. So they withheld it the next school year. So they did the same thing. Wasn't intentional, it was a huge reporting error, but so, yeah, the school district had to pay it back the next year. So it happens. And that was more significant. They actually, you know, at that point, it's reporting data, so then you have to go through a corrective action plan even, so.
So do we pursue this further? Do we look into it with the state and say, is this the only remedy for making this right? We're just gonna drop our fund balance to, you know,
I believe we have a choice.
We have no
We don't
recourse.
I mean, the audit firm doesn't have any suggestions for us as to how. proceed with this.
Well, thankfully, we have a fund balance that can absorb this, and hopefully we can build it up again. I'm trying to remember where we left off last year. Like
I can look.
1.6, I can't remember.
I
It's
thought you said 1.8.
17%.
Well, I keep making up numbers.
Yeah, you do, I know, I said.
1.06, I think it was.
1.06,
Of the
unassigned.
That's
unassigned.
why I don't take notes.
It'll change.
So effective,
Yeah,
we're
a
looking
little
at almost
over,
50.
So our
Yeah.
fund balance will drop quite a bit.
Yeah,
So we just really need to make sure that we are running in the black.
Yep.
Because that's gonna drop us down into that 9%.
Yeah.
That's pretty tight.
And even when you think you're running in the black, you might be running in the red.
Right? I mean, 2023, 2022,
You just don't know until,
that's a 2-year-old account there, right? Or, I mean, that's a long, anyway, I'm gonna sit and ask dumb questions about it, so I'll shut up.
So I think we're gonna rerun the projection model.
Yeah, we'll do the 5-year projection again.
it won't change.
But it's,
And then we'll revise the budget again eventually.
I mean, my Freddie,
So hopefully we
my
get,
Freddie won't change.
the auditors will provide the report next month and they'll let us know what our fund balances are and, yeah. So if there's any, questions that you want me to ask prior to, just let me know. And the grant dollars are spent. That's the other drawback, but. Any more questions?
Thank you, Sheena.
thank you.
On to lighter news, right?
I'll try to be happy, I promise. I also will try and be brief.
That's why we kept you at the end, is you're like
Watching the time.
the good news.
Yeah, hello. So, just to go off of what Mary said about homecoming, we did host a day volleyball game at the end of homecoming week on Friday. It was a 1 p.m. game versus Walker. We won, which is always exciting, but more importantly, it was just a super fun day I think a few of you were there. Those day games are a ton of fun. I'm appreciative to my fellow administration for being willing to put up with the chaos. I mean, it's a lot for teachers, especially our elementary teachers. I want you to imagine wrangling 20 first graders with popcorn and water in the stands in there. I mean, it's a lot, and it's a super fun day for them. So I think the point I'll make about that is that our district is unique in the sense that we have a huge geographic area. So you got kids ranging from now even further east past Indus to Long Point. A lot of those kids don't necessarily get the opportunity to show up to a volleyball game because it's just not feasible for their parents to come in for 40 minutes for a varsity game. So it's, I think, an important thing that we offer our kids, so I'm appreciative that we make it happen. In terms of the rest of our athletics, football has had a tough run. You've maybe heard some of that. We decided to forfeit our Little Fork game in early October, and then decided to forfeit our first playoff game for safety purposes. Basically numbers, I think we had about 10 healthy bodies as of mid last week, and while yes, we do play 9-man, it's just not a safe choice to be playing, especially if we're an 8th seed playing a 1 seed. So not an easy decision, especially for our seniors of that group, but they understand. They know that it's a different ball game if it were basketball, right? But it's not, it's football. So volleyball plays their first playoff game on Thursday here at home against the Northern Freeze at 7 p.m. Excited for that. And cross country goes to sections on Friday in Bagley. So off and running with fall postseason sports. Community ed, we had a really great turnout with our flag football camps. Thanks to Rylan Henriksen and Austin Heimstra, who did the 4th and 5th grade. They had about 22 kids out in 4th and 5th grade. And then Tony Taylor and Dan Holen hosted the kindergarten through 3rd grade. That was on Saturdays. They had about 21 students. They did that for 4 Saturdays, and we had a game at halftime at homecoming with them out on the field, which was quite cute. Jenny Skoog did a cross-country run camp, essentially Wednesday afternoons after school for K through 5th grade, and she had about 20 kids out for that also. Archery is currently happening in the multipurpose gym. They start here at 7:30. I have about 12 students currently registered. That's a longer program. It's a once weekly archery program that Buck Nordloff puts on. A lot of that, Whitetails Unlimited has been incredibly generous for that group. So we're ordering new equipment through a $2,000 grant or $2,000 donation that Whitetails Unlimited has given. That also is now funding all of the registration fees for everyone. So as of this year, archery is free for all of our 6th through 12th grade students who want to sign up, thanks to Whitetails Unlimited, the local Whitetails chapter. So many thanks to them. In the planning stages of Holiday Extravaganza, you have maybe saw in the paper that it is now being not combined, but Frost Fest being run in the city is going to happen on the same day. So a lot of those activities are going to happen in the evening. There's a movie happening at 3. There's a light parade happening in the evening. Is the Lynn Furbish Memorial Light Parade. So thanks to Mike Hovde and that team, I think it's a great like all one fell swoop in terms of all of your Christmas joy happening in one day. The rest of us are going to become a hermit after that, I think.
Is that by design?
Yes, I think it had been that way in the past, and then Frost Fest had moved to early December because it was not yet frosty, and now they've decided to move it back with the thought that we're a small community, let's just do it all together. And then enrichment. Jeff and Mary and I have been talking about, with some staffing changes, there's a little bit of a hole in our community and enrichment. And again, enrichment and gifted and talented are a kind of quagmire of money and definition. So it's a broad concept, but we're trying to make sure that the Spelling Bee, Math Masters, Creativity Festival, Young Authors Conference, and then combining that with Junior High Knowledge Bowl we make sure that happens, because all of those categories and events are opportunities for kids to get something else beyond their classroom. And especially at a middle school level, that becomes really important to try and feed some of those more curious, kids who are looking for more stuff. Okay, that's all I got. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
So we'll close the working session and move on to the regular meeting.
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Make the motion.
Second by Lyon.
Johnson and Lyon, any discussion? Call for a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Any board presenters? Any written communications? No. Old business, none listed. Go on to new business. Looking for a motion to approve the September 25th, 2023 board meeting minutes.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Whomever.
Johnson and Rovita. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve the October 3rd, 23 special board meeting minutes.
Make the motion.
Second by Lyon.
Johnson and Lyon. Any discussion?
Fastest meeting ever.
How's bus driving?
It's good.
Good.
It's really good, yeah.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, looking for a motion to approve the invoices, financial statements, bank reconciliations, wire transfers, and purchase card
I'll
statements.
make that motion.
I'll second.
Lynn and Robin. Any discussion? I just have a question. On the purchase card statements, there are some that say missing. And is that something that, how is that dealt with? Is that dealt with?
It's being dealt with.
It's being dealt with. Okay, that's good enough. That's just what I'm. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve the personnel resignations, retirements, and appointments. We have appointments of Debbie Westover, substitute assistant cook, Camille Massaro, kindergarten teacher, and Heather Marie Northup, substitute assistant cook, substitute custodian, and substitute paraprofessional.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Johnson and Sonstigard. Any discussion?
Heather's got quite the title.
Quite the resume there, yeah.
Welcome aboard. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/24-07, accepting a donation of $100 from Wabonica Lutheran Church, Ruby's Pantry, to the PBIS program.
I'll make the motion.
Second by Lyon.
Motion by Rubita, second by Lyon. Any discussion? A thank you to Wabonica Lutheran Church and Ruby's Pantry for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/24-08, accepting a donation of $2,500 from A&I Pharmaceuticals to Lake of the Woods High School.
Motion.
Johnson.
Second by Lyon.
Any discussion?
This is
What's it for?
yeah. It's a larger donation.
Does anybody know what this is?
I thought it was the Dollars for Scholars.
No,
What is
so
it?
A and I met with them this summer, and they really want to form a relationship with the school and do more as far as donating things to us. And then myself and 3 teachers went there before workshops, and out of the blue, they got a hold of me and said, we have a check for $2,500 for you, use it for supplies or whatever you need. We have decided that we are going to use it to purchase, so we're looking more at the safety and improve the environment with it. So we're looking at getting window clings where they're perforated so you can see out but you can't see in. And so when you think about like some of our entrances, office windows, district windows, when you see how people have paper over the windows and the doors and things, we're working with Sandpaper Design, and they're gonna make different designs to choose from. And that's what the money's gonna go towards, and A&I is planning on doing further donations because they came and donated some school supplies and took pictures, and we talked about the check, and they said to me, well, what do you think to do it all at once will cost? I said, I don't know, I'll have to figure that one out with Sandpaper. So they may donate to do everything for the whole school right away. So it is.
So it's like the front entrance doors.
Front entrance doors, when you think about like my office facing those windows that go out into the commons area, I can get rid of those shades and put something more attractive on the windows. And so they'll have the focus like school colors, you know, when you think of some of our logos, and then tying in PBIS and some of those different pictures that you've seen around. And then, like I said, for the teachers' windows, if you look, some just have, okay, even Mr. Nelson. If you look at his door in the hallway, it's just paper taped on it. So to put a nice window plane, so we can see out, but it still keeps the privacy so they can't see in. So that is what we've decided
Just doing your
to
best.
use that money towards.
Being frugal. That's awesome. Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's exciting.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. We had discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/24-09, accepting a donation of $250 from Williams Gardeners to the Angel Fund.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Johnson and Sonstigard, any discussion? Just a thank you to Williams Gardeners for that donation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
No, I know some of them. I can see their faces. I can't think of their names right now.
Looking
Sorry.
for a motion to approve the World's Best Workforce and Achievement and Integration Plan for 2023-24 school year.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Johnson and Southgard, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we're looking for a motion to approve resolution 2023/24-10, accepting a donation of $283 from Ovatica Lutheran Church to the backpack program.
I'll motion.
Second by Lyon.
Ovita and Lyon, any discussion? Again, thank you to Ovatica Lutheran Church for that donation. And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Any other business? We'll adjourn at 7:25.
I know my girl's gonna miss Sylvia. She lived in the extra room for a little while.
Yeah.
Their main thing